The return to office debate is about to get ugly. Many of the big tech companies, as well as other global organisations, are backtracking on their commitments to support remote working. Yet the research just doesn't substantiate their reasoning. Are they just lying to you, or is this part of a larger plan that they have? If you like this video, then don't forget to hit like and subscribe to keep updated on the new content that we release. My name's Andy Waterhouse. I'm the Presales Coach. Let's get started. Early 2020 was tough, in fact brutal. COVID-19 hit the world hard and the impact on humanity was immense. But part of that impact was how we handled the various lockdowns that occurred across the world. Instead of the hours commuting on busy public transport or being sat in endless queues of traffic, then squeezed into small, noisy office spaces, we all ended up having to figure out quickly how to work remotely and still get our jobs done. Unless, of course, you got furloughed because you had to be in a cafe, shop, building site or whatever. The point is that a lot of work innovation happened in a very short period of time to ensure that most companies were able to survive this horrendous pandemic. The amazing thing is, many companies found that their productivity rates actually improved with people working remotely. It was tough, but we figured out how to get things done better, faster, and we cut through layers of bureaucracy that have been holding many people, departments, and companies back. These improvements were hailed by almost everyone as an amazing new dawn for work, an awakening for how work could be. Many companies committed to support remote work forever, but moved forward just a couple of years and the attitudes to remote working were already starting to change as demands to be in the office started to increase. Now we find ourselves in a situation where lots of companies are demanding a return to office, RTO, including many of those that had only recently committed to forever support remote work just a short period before. We need to recognise that people are in different situations when it comes to being in the office. Some live close to the office and want to be there every day. It provides a clear break between work and home life. Some have moved further away during COVID, and so now getting to an office is a major issue. And so here we are. Lots of companies saying that we need to be back in the office for productivity reasons. The amazing thing is, the discussions around productivity gains by going back in the office for most of the week just don't stack up. So what's going on? The headlines about most of the companies that are insisting on RTO are around productivity and innovation, but there are some other areas to review as well. It'll be no surprise that some of these were issues that we hit at the start of COVID-19. So let's look at the biggest item, productivity. Most of the companies claim that they need to drive productivity by driving people back into the office. However, there's no corroborating data on this, but there is data that shows that RTO does not drive productivity and therefore financial gains for the company. The University of Pittsburgh recently released a study on the various RTO mandates. They specifically looked at the financial performance of the companies driving RTO and found that there was no improvement. They state, "We provide evidence that the RTO mandates hurt employee satisfaction but do not improve firm performance." The reality is that by harming employee satisfaction, they harm productivity. Now, if we really want to drive productivity improvements, then we have to look at how companies measure productivity. That's usually done through various KPIs that relate to individual job functions and then how those translate into departmental performance. Outside sales, marketing and support, most people have no idea what the KPIs are that are used to measure their individual work. Companies are wary of sharing how they track employee performance, and yet the data is available in most of the systems that we use to run our businesses. And these systems don't care if you're in the office or working remotely. So if companies want to use productivity as a driver for RTO, be open and create public dashboards of performance, even if at team level, and show how it compares against goals and past performance. I guarantee that these companies will not do this. The principle of RTO is effectively so that a manager can walk past their team and see if they're working. Welcome back to the 1950s. The next point that's raised is innovation. Human interaction is an amazing thing. People bounce ideas off each other, we brainstorm, someone says something, it triggers an idea in someone else. There is no denying this effect. But does that mean that during lockdowns innovation stopped? I don't think so. In fact, the challenge that we faced actually drove innovation. Necessity is the mother of invention. So RTO ignores one of the key issues with the office approach to innovation. It only works with the small group in your office. What about the other groups on the same floor, or different floors in your building, or different buildings on your campus, or other cities and countries? One of the lessons that the pandemic taught us is that we can drive innovation differently to include a wider group of people. I fully agree that the in-person experience fosters a higher level of innovation, but the real key is then how to drive that across a wider group. Technology can help drive innovation, not restrict it. It becomes more inclusive for a wider range of viewpoints and ideas. Humans are social creatures, or at least most of us are. We thrive on personal interactions, and our work in teams is usually greater than the sum of the parts of the team. A team with a strong social bond is a wonderful thing to see, with each team member able to rely on and get support from the other members of the team. It's a fact that building those bonds is much more efficient face-to-face. This is one of the reasons that most onboarding of new employees is done in person. People that were onboarded during the pandemic generally showed lower engagement scores in surveys and often performed less effectively than those who were already on board. The same goes for developing those teams. We get better results when we pull teams together for training and enablement. But then the question comes, does everything then need to be in person? And the answer is clearly no. Even during lockdowns, we saw some amazing teams operating at full speed, learning to adapt to meet the challenge. They were able to rely on the bonds that had already been built. The key lesson here is that teams do need to spend time together in the same space to get to know each other and build relationships. But then, just like when you see an old friend again after many years, those relationships can stand the test of time and of distance. Any human relationship needs a physical presence, and client relationships are no different. We need to ensure that we build a strong relationship with our champions and our technical champions, our economic buyers, and of course, with our users. But we also cannot ignore that many of our customers will operate remotely anyway. I lost count of the number of meetings that I attended in person that ended up being switched to Zoom at the customer's office as someone else in the company was working remotely. The reality is that we need to be able to adapt to how the customers and their teams operate. Take the time to build a face-to-face relationship with the key people, and in fact, go out of your way to do so to ensure that you can make an impact. But you need to recognize that there's a high likelihood of the situations that I've encountered with customer meetings. What is really driving RTO? In my opinion, it's historic and backwards thinking and concerns around the level of investments that are made in office space. The backwards thinking I've already discussed. The justification on productivity and innovation just isn't there. We have senior leaders that have regressed into thinking that they need managers watching over their teams to make sure that they're working, just like the 1950s offices. The irony of this is that the big tech companies are talking about and selling digital transformation solutions and how AI will change the world. They sell the software and hardware solutions to enable you to work from anywhere and be a creative collaborator, but then force their own people to work in an office. Hey tech companies, how about living the brands that you claim to be able to deliver on? The investments in office space are an interesting issue. We saw massive growth in the tech sector just prior to the pandemic, as well as through it, and many companies entered into a significant expansion of their office space to handle the growth, often at significant cost. The impact of COVID-19 left much of this space like an empty wasteland. These companies had a massive cost and nothing to show for it. The fortunate companies were able to renegotiate lease agreements, but many were not. Therefore, they need people in the offices no matter what. They couldn't afford to have expensive real estate just sitting there empty. So whatever happened, they needed to mandate people going into the offices. One final point here is around who should be in the office. As I mentioned, some people want to be in the office. They might be local. They might want that clear differentiation between work and personal life, or they might just want that more social and in-person aspect of the job. For everyone else, we should be looking at what their role actually needs. Most of the RTO mandates are generalised in their nature, but that's absurd. Office functions need to be reviewed role by role, department by department, and possibly location by location. But that's tough to do, so they take the easy option and just declare that everyone should be in the office. While the struggle of adapting to working from home during the pandemic was a major issue for many, we did manage to adapt. As we started to see the world open up again, we saw similar or higher productivity rates for most businesses with people working remotely. But we had the significant benefit of not having to commute, which saved money and also significantly increased work-life ratios. It also significantly benefited people's mental health and the ability for parents to be able to deal with family issues like getting access to childcare and getting children to and from school. There was also the significantly positive environmental impact of fewer vehicles on the road, thus creating fewer emissions. The RTO mandates remove all of these benefits. But it gets worse. Many companies have been mandating RTO, but also closing some of the smaller offices, which forces huge commutes or forces people to have to relocate. This specifically targets older and therefore more expensive workers that will have roots in their communities, children at schools and relatives locally. In my opinion, this is a thinly veiled ageism attack, often from companies that have already been involved in court battles around ageism. But the crazy thing is that the opposite then is also true, forcing too many people into small and overcrowded offices. And this is a direct ploy to get people to leave due to dissatisfaction with the role and the inability to work effectively. And the effects are felt by young families. Again, these long commutes mean that finding childcare provision is both difficult and expensive. And it often forces young parents to make some difficult choices, especially women. So let's drill into that point. EY recently released a report that showed that female appointments to UK financial services boardrooms fell in 2023 amid growing demand for C-suite experience. The rates fell from 50% in 2022 to 36% in 2023, just as we started forcing people back into offices. Oh, and by the way, EY is one of the companies mandating a return to office. The net impact for companies is that employee satisfaction drops, employee productivity drops, and the shareholders don't get any additive value. So why would you do this? We need to remind ourselves of the lessons of the COVID-19 pandemic. The world of work was already changing prior to 2020, but the lockdowns rapidly accelerated that change. We proved that for most office roles, we can work remotely. The biggest issue for me is that too many people see this as an either-or decision. The reality is that the social contact of an office has demonstrable benefits for relationships, teams, and personal growth. But remote working supports better mental health, at least equal productivity, and a much better work-life ratio. We need to do a much better job of figuring out the needs of the role and the KPIs directly associated with it, instead of some crazy generic RTO mandate. We need to focus on the outcomes of our roles and not where they're delivered. We've already figured out how to innovate and brainstorm remotely, so why not add in some days in the office with specific time to address innovation ideas and then progress them into remote sessions? Yes, that requires more planning, but isn't that what managers are for? It would then pull in every mind that can add to an innovation discussion, not just those that sit within a 6-cube radius. Figuring out collaboration is key, but we've got some amazing technology solutions already to help. Take the time to train people on how to use them effectively, then just let them get on with it. Use virtual meetings, virtual breakout rooms, virtual whiteboards, and shared documents. You can also build a shared virtual office environment. Have a Zoom session or whatever video system you use that's set up in the break room or cafeteria or even in the main office. Remote workers can be connected in and feel that they're part of the office culture. I've seen this work in real life, and the feedback was amazing. The winners in the RTO debate will be the companies that are forward-thinking and operate a hybrid environment. They'll take the best of both worlds and make it work for them. They'll also win in that they'll attract the best and brightest talent to work for them. And my final comment for you to consider: if these major companies think that they can only work effectively if their people are in the office, then what will they do when the next pandemic hits? I would certainly not trust them with my business, my money, or any investment. I want to invest in the future, not 1950s thinking. If you like this video, then hit like and subscribe to keep updated on the new content that we release. And why not subscribe to our newsletter for updates on what's happening, plus hints and tips about pre-sales. Links are in the video description, and feel free to share your thoughts in the comments below as well. Until the next time, I'm Andy Waterhouse. I'm the pre-sales coach. Thanks for watching.